Yeah, you never know.
There we go. Now it's picking up.
Hello,
Okay.
hello.
Yes, yes.
All right. So, are we live now?
Yeah, we should be.
Well, thanks for the warning, bud.
I'm sorry. Well, I said we're going right now. Hopefully this will work.
Okay. All right. Well, can you guys hear Church of Failure? Church of Failure, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. So you guys should be able to hear Church of Failure. All right. So what's Muddy? Who are you guys calling Muddy? Are you guys calling me Muddy, or are you guys calling? I'm not sure exactly if that was a conversation before or what.
No, they were
Sounded
talking
okay.
about Nation of Israel and someone and Farrakhan. It was a very deep intellectual chat going on while we were doing
Oh
this.
God! Well, thank goodness I wasn't involved in that. So, yeah, yeah, perfect. So, all right. So, Church, it is a pleasure to finally have you on. I know I was on your show a few weeks ago, and we had some pretty in-depth conversations about comics, and so with all of the anger and angst and all the interesting things being said in the media right now, as it pertains to this Black Mermaid, I figured, let's have a discussion because this isn't the first time that that a main character has been that their gender or even their race has changed. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely not. No, this is not new, and this has happened in just about every medium. It's not even the first time Disney's done it this decade.
So okay, so when was it done by Disney before? Because I mean,
Oh,
according to
just a few years ago, it was done in Doctor Strange.
in Doctor how so in Doctor Strange?
The ancient one was supposed to be an old Tibetan man, not Tilda Swinton.
Oh yeah, it definitely wasn't a middle-aged white woman. So that's a very interesting thought. So that, but of course, for some reason, I feel that if it's if it's a another race going white, then it doesn't cause nearly as much of a uproar, right?
I would be willing to say that it actually, in its time, it did cause a little bit of an uproar. It did cause a little bit of an issue.
I
Um,
don't. I do not remember a hashtag not my monk sign.
that's because it's a lesser known property. I think.
Yeah,
You
everybody
you
knows who Ariel is, but I do
right.
remember also. I mean, back when I was younger, I remember they had Brandy play Cinderella. They call it a Rainbow Cinderella or whatever it was,
Right.
and I thought it was well done. I mean, I thought it was a good show, but it didn't cause much of an uproar. I don't believe.
No, and I think that was more of a sign of the time. While you guys were doing your audio, I actually pulled up some facts on some talking points that I had for this particular discussion. And I don't want to approach these things with any kind of oversight. Like, I don't want any kind of inflection on these things. I just want the facts to be taken in and opinions to be drawn about. But with Disney specifically, Ariel, we've seen a lot of claim that there's outrage in the media, right?
Right.
Have you seen any of the actual outrage?
That's an interesting point, Church, because immediately I went to Twitter, and because it was trending, I went to Twitter. I started looking and checking, and I literally read through thousands of comments, thousands. Um, and in that conversation, I saw maybe two comments that were negative, that were people complaining about there being a black Ariel. But the rest of them were all people who were complaining about the people who were supposedly complaining about the black
Hmm.
Ariel.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's wait for it. I feel like it was a manufactured crisis.
Yeah, right. And that brings me to a point, and this is specifically because of Disney, right? Like
Right.
we're talking about the Little Mermaid right now. We're talking about a movie that was produced in what, 1991, 1980 something.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so no, 1989 was the Little Mermaid. So
Yeah.
let's just deconstruct that a little bit. Do you have little girls? I know
I
you're
do.
a dad. You have little girls, so you're pretty
Yeah.
familiar with the Disney princess lineup, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, in order, chronologically, we've got Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, The Little Mermaid, and Belle from The Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
Those are your first five Disney princesses.
Okay.
Then you add, in sequence now, in chronological order, Jasmine, Pocahontas, Mulan, and then Tiana.
Okay.
A little bit of a trend there, right?
Yeah, I would say there is.
Just a little bit of a break in, and it's not that it's a bad thing. All of those were fantastic movies and will be timeless from now until the end of time because Disney's animation just is that. They take what they take and they make something that makes billions of dollars out
Sure.
of it. Then after Tiana, you've got Rapunzel and Merida, the little Scottish girl, before you have Moana. So it goes five white princesses, four princesses of color, two more white princesses, and another princess of color. So, taking into consideration that Snow White and Cinderella were 1937 and 1950, you've got a pretty good ratio of modern era princesses, right?
Sure.
Now, obviously, you don't have as many African American princesses as you have white ones, but a lot of these different stories came from different areas of Europe. And to classify white people as one group of people with the same cultural beliefs and the same upbringing is ludicrous.
Sure. Absolutely.
So,
I mean,
I,
because what Belle was French and Moana
right,
was Polynesian, right?
right.
I mean, so
So
yeah. I mean, Mulan was Chinese,
Asian,
was
Asian, I
it?
believe, of
Asian.
some
Yeah.
variety.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
that is an interesting point.
but the fact is, the block of princesses of color right around the early 90s, starting with Jasmine and going to Tiana without a stop, without even a break. Do you think that might have been Disney making up for something, quote unquote, trying to level the playing field because of some unknown ideology that was just starting to form in the early 90s?
Hmm. I someone said this Pocahontas movie count. I mean, technically, I guess she would have been a Native American princess, right?
Yes, I mean, if you don't think a Native American is a minority, you need to read up on your history. There were blankets, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's very. That's why I brought you on the show. That I'd never thought about that in that way. That there was such a a
Well,
change. And of course, I mean, to be honest, I was never really in on the whole princess deal. I mean, by the time that the Disney princesses started to come out, um, Saving Private Ryan came out, and I was kind of enamored with that stuff.
right, right.
And
Well,
yeah, I was. If
yeah,
there was no guns and no shooting, I didn't really have much interest.
I had a lot of sisters, and I had, of course, in the
Oh,
princess
I've
role.
made up for it since my daughters have come. I've seen every princess. I can sing every song in there. So I
That
won't go into that now.
that'll be a 10,000 subscriber special, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be on. We'll do Disney princess duets. I'll play the men, and Q will sing the ladies' verses.
I tell you what, we might have to do that. At 10,000 subscribers, I will sing the Disney princess song of your choice.
Yeah, you have to super chat it in though. You have to $20 super chat it in. That's how we'll do it. You have to send your request in and a $20 super chat. You're gonna be rich, and you're gonna sing every princess song there is. It's gonna be great.
I don't think anybody wants to hear me belt out impossible. So I don't think that'll ever happen. But yeah, but if so, you can always work something out that you can say.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Our issues, our sound issues. Boy, he was over there. Yeah, so that's pretty good. I think you were saying it didn't know.
No, that's the mellow yellow theme.
Oh.
That's how I do my level check. But no,
so what do you feel like?
Right.
So, in Marvel, technically, I mean they were way ahead of the game on this thing on making switches when they brought live action on making switches to both gender and
comics in general have been. I don't mean to interrupt there. Go ahead and finish your thought. I don't want to attribute it just to Marvel.
No. We can make a strong connection between Marvel and Disney. That's the only reason why I made that connection. So, yeah. I mean, as far as comics go, comics were kind of Disney has kind of become somewhat of its own religion at this point. People have grown up Disney, you know.
Disney's going to own the world.
I mean, as it pertains to entertainment, I know people that are grown people who have rooms in their house they have a cult following, man. So, I mean, if you ever want to see people get incredibly excited, yeah, just start talking about, Disney, and yeah, you will bring out the best or the worst in people very quickly. So I can see how this could become a heated discussion, but the fact that it's racially charged is the concern at this point. Because we can ask ourselves, what is different between then and now?
Well, do you want me to be candid with you? Like, do you want the honest answer to that?
This is pay-per-view, so you can say, well, almost.
Well, to be completely honest, I think we briefly touched on this off air before once we were talking, but to be just completely frank about it, Disney's in the middle of a class action lawsuit, I believe, right now, in regard to early caught paying like 79% of what they paid men for the same job.
Oh.
This started before Captain Marvel was a release, so that's what made me think that Captain was nothing but a quickly thrown together signal. It wasn't a piece of the MCU that had been being crafted for 20 years, which is why there was so much fan backlash to it. It was literally a virtue signal to say, look, we care about women.
That's really interesting. I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah.
I mean, but isn't Disney considered, Disney, ABC, those are all pretty left-leaning organizations, so how could they be responsible for underpaying women for the same work?
Like they don't practice what they preach.
No, come on now. You know better than that.
No, I don't think I do. I think I'm ignorant to the fact that they actually might be doing what they say is good for everybody. I think that the left-leaning organizations that pander for votes, have more practices of hiring illegal immigrants and paying them less wages and, not providing them benefits because of their citizenship than you would see in conservative institutions that hire Americans for these jobs. I think that you had these.
About to get defunded.
I think that you have a reason behind everything that happens, and if you look hard enough, you will find that reason has nothing to do with what they say it does.
That's incredible. So, I mean, so give us a, I mean, so, okay, there was a character, oh man, there was a doctor, I forget the character name on that in the original Ninjas, he's black.
Yeah.
But in the live action, he was white. Or not in the cartoon, when the cartoon came around.
Right.
I'm trying to remember.
Well, you have that, and I can give you a few more examples from the comic book world. Jimmy Olsen in Supergirl, traditionally white redheaded character, is now black.
Well, okay, but as long as it's not a black redhead, because they scare me a little bit.
Well, there's that's racist first off, but
Yeah.
that's category, isn't it?
It is. It's way outside of it, man. So my first son was born with red hair, and I almost left him at the hospital.
You almost left him in a barn, didn't you?
I almost left him at the hospital. I thought, wait a minute. So yeah. So no, now that's a little.
You know, let's just stop. I mean, if you have a minute, I'd like to talk about that too, because I don't think this is a black and white thing strictly. I think this gets a little more specific. I spoke on this in DMs, but you brought up comic books. You brought up the Ninja Turtles. We've talked a little bit about Ariel. I mentioned Jimmy Olsen. You know who Jimmy Olsen was, right? Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, the reporter, redhead, freckles. What color is Ariel's hair, by the way, just for reference?
Red. There's a lot of. I mean, Wally West was red.
Was a redhead. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I was going to get in that. I've got that pulled up on my screen right now, actually.
Okay.
Iris West, also a redhead. Batgirl, in the Lego movie, even Batgirl was replaced by a mixed race African American. Is that an offensive word now? I remember it not being when I was younger.
I don't remember. I think pretty much anything is. Just tell everyone you are a transgender, and it will not be.
I'm a building, so I don't think that'll work for me.
Okay, well, just tell them you identify as something else, and if you do that,
I identify as
racist.
I identify as a synagogue of Israel.
Oh, that could be a problem. That could be a problem.
I thought you guys were supposed to love Israel.
Oh, we yeah, that's a touchy subject.
Should it be a mosque?
Depends on who they're fighting at the time. So, okay, I'm so sorry, man. I am going off on a rabbit trail. But okay, so you're talking about. So it sounds like they heads over in the comic book world.
You remember Heimdall from the Marvel universe, the guy that Idris Elba played.
Yep.
Okay, well, he was a redhead in the books.
What's up with all these redheads, man? That's kind of a scary deal.
It's I think it's a little bit of a conspiracy. Mary Jane Watson, MJ in the Spider-Man comic book. What ethnicity is the new MJ in the Spider-Man movies?
Isn't she brunette? Well, it depends.
I believe she's an African American of some descent, or a Latin American of some descent.
I mean, I'm thinking Kirsten Dunst.
No. I'm talking about the new Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to. I don't think since Tobey Maguire, I haven't really. I've kind of.
You're two Spider-Men behind.
Yeah, I kind of boycotted it because Tobey Maguire is the real Spider-Man.
Hot take from a comic book nerd. Spider-Man 2 was the best comic book movie of all time.
You think so?
Absolutely. It was the most comic book movie ever made.
Really? So that was the one that stayed the absolute closest to.
I think so. Well, not even as far as source material goes. I think just being true to the medium of comic books, that movie hit home run.
Okay. So do you think that there's a conspiracy to essentially wipe redheads out of the comic book world?
I think that someone in the media thinks that you can take a redhead and interchange them for a black person, and that's completely acceptable and not stereotypical at all.
Well, they're both minorities. Let's be honest.
Well, I mean, you remember how the Irish were treated when they first came over here.
Well,
So
you're
what does
right.
that say?
So
what,
then
what?
it comes down to whether or not. I mean, they say that redheads don't have a soul. I don't think that's true. I don't believe that. But you know.
No, that's the meme. Yeah, I get. I've heard the meme.
Well, it's more than a meme. I've got
Oh,
my best.
you don't believe it, but it's more than a meme.
What do you white people always? What do you white people always say? My best friend's a redhead. So.
Oh. That mean we're best friends now, Q? I still haven't gotten my Sandy Page 42 card.
Hey, it is on the way. Off air, I need to get an address of some sort to send it to. But yeah, don't dox yourself. But yeah, we need to figure
Toad
that
Suck, Arkansas, everybody. Toad Suck, Arkansas.
So, but yeah, so okay, so Corona is saying the gingers have no souls. He can confirm, or she can confirm this.
Right.
I cannot confirm that. My grandmother is a redhead. But I know she doesn't watch this show. Otherwise, I would have got a phone call about 10 minutes ago. So she's not watching. So you think there's a conspiracy to wipe redheads out of comic books, eh?
I think that they're expendable, and I think that there's a template almost. And that's just a not even comic books. I think in media as well. It seems to me that it almost seems like acceptable to swap the template, if that makes sense.
That's incredibly interesting. Incredibly interesting. I'm not certain. I'm not exactly certain how far that goes, but
well, you mentioned Wally West when you were first listing off characters, and I had a little bit of a rant prepared for Wally West because people give Wally West a bad rap. People think that Wally West isn't the real Flash; he's just Kid Flash. They think that Wally West that is on the Flash show is the Wally West has always been, and that's not true. Barry Allen was the Flash from the 30s or 40s until 1985. In 1986, Kid Flash Wally West Redhead became the in continuity Flash for DC Comics and the Justice League for 20 something years until 2011 when DC did this new 52 thing and Wally West was turned into the current Wallace West character with the, Now, here's my problem with that. And when it happened, I really didn't give a damn. Like I thought, okay, they're doing something interesting. They brought Barry back. Let's see where it goes. Let's give it a chance. But two problems that I have with it. First off, all of these TV shows. Do you remember the original Flash TV show on Sci-Fi?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that was the story of Barry Allen, right?
Right.
No, that was the story of Wally West with Barry Allen's name on it. Same thing with the current Flash TV show. All of these characters, all of these villains, all of these story arcs that they go through, these are all Wally West story arcs that happened before 2010.
So who the hell did Wally West piss off that he got essentially erased?
It's literally the redheaded stepchild meme. That's what I'm getting at. But here's my issue with it even further, one step further. Once they introduced Wallace West, the Black Wally West character, instead of sticking with it, instead of just grabbing their nutsack, excuse my French, and saying, this is where we're putting our flag in the ground. We're going to ride this until it either crashes and burns or sails off to victory. We're going to stick with it. They waited 5 years, and then they reintroduced White Wally West and said, "Oh, it was all a Speed Force mix-up," because they wanted to please both sets of fans.
Man, at some point, I would hate to see what percentage of America is redhead, which I'm sure someone can figure that out. But well, when the gingers get a hold of this, they are going to revolt. And I have a theory. I think all vampires are actually gingers because they both burn in the sunlight, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that vampires are really gingers, but so
It's more of a were lobster situation. They get out in the sunlight and they just turn into lobster people.
I hate that. It happens to me all the time, Church. You have no idea. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. I had a client tell me the other day he got diagnosed with melanoma, and he tells me, he says, the doctor told me it's from all the years in tanning beds that I've spent. He said, Q, don't ever use a tanning bed. Whatever you do, don't ever use a tanning bed. And I looked at him just as serious, and I said, I promise you, I never have, and I never will. And he's like, I'm serious. Do not use tanning beds.
How are you gonna cosplay as Flava Flav or Wesley Snipes?
I don't know. To be honest, someone offered earlier in the chat offered me an opportunity to play George Washington in the next Hollywood movie. I don't think that there's any situation that could possibly come up where I would actually play Flavor Flav or Wesley Snipes. Yeah, sorry. I don't think that if that's what it's going to take for my.
It could be an educational video on doing your taxes.
Woo! Yeah, that was rough. That was rough. So yeah, I'm okay. I will. Yeah, Q will go in blackface. Yeah, definitely. I will get some black shoe polish and I will go to town. So yeah, and plus I can't read an analog clock anyway, so to wrap an analog clock around my neck wouldn't work out too well for the Flavor Flav today. So
we could do a digital, it's fine.
we could do a big ass digital clock. Fantastic. I wonder if he's like stepped up to the smart clocks now.
I think Rolex makes a gold-plated digital clock.
Do they? Do they? Well, I better step it up. I better step it up. So tell me this, man. So it's interesting because I talk to a lot of people just like you do. I interact with a lot of people via in person, and I feel like that's the issue that we have with social media today as it stands, is that we essentially end up in these echo chambers where we are, hollering back and forth with people who think like us, who act like us. I really, in a weird way, feel like my kids' frontier will be face-to-face conversation. That's going to make a comeback. Where that is going to be that personal interaction is going to be the wave of the future, which seems really strange to us in our generation. But
do you think that it'll go back to a form of almost like tribalism where people will start banding together again in neighborhoods? Like friends will start moving together. Even if you meet this person over the internet, you'll move closer to them so that you can almost form a band of merry misfits, so to speak, like go to the same college kind of thing again, instead of not interacting with anybody you've known. If you're talking, I can't hear you. Q. I've lost him. I think we've lost him, ladies and gentlemen. A band of cues would be amazing. I just told them that you've been lost. Social media be the equivalent of cave dwelling. Q. No.
Can you hear me?
I can. I can
All
hear
right.
you. You're back.
I was about to go home and have some pizza and let you finish the show out.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I could totally do that. I'll just sit here and read the chat.
Yeah, just read the chat and just go. yeah, that would be fantastic. So, but okay, so but we come to a place now where unfortunately it seems as though the art of communication, face-to-face communication, is being lost. I was talking to one of my interns for the summer. He's working with me, young guy, like 21 years old, and kind of trying to teach him the business, teach him the industry. And he and we're sitting there having lunch, and he sees this girl walks in the restaurant. He's like, "Oh my God, she's beautiful." And I said, "Well, why don't you go over there and talk to her?" He looked at me like I had a third.
I'm gonna look to see if I can find her on Instagram.
That's exactly what he did. He's like, "Wait a minute." He's like, "Well, let me see if I can find her on Snapchat." He's like, "You want me to go and talk to her like in person?" And I, and I was like, "Yeah, go up and ask her name and get her phone number." I can't do that. He's like, "Are you nuts?" She'll think I'm nuts. And I'm thinking, is that really what we've evolved to? Like, yes. we spend millennia trying to master the art of communication. In one generation, we lose it.
Sorry, I had to sneeze. I think the chat's onto the fact that your display of unplugging your microphone and stepping away for a moment was just all a psychocerebral, description of how we have lost the art to communicate.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That was all intentional. They're figuring
that was all intentional. Yeah, it was definitely on purpose. So yeah, I just wanted to show you what it would be like if we woke up tomorrow and had no social media.
To answer your question, yes, that's exactly what we've come to. We've come to an era where now that we've mastered the ability to have face-to-face communication, the only people that are going to do that are people committing crimes that don't want to leave records for Nick Ricada to read on live streams.
that's what we have. I don't want to say devolved to, because someone might take that as,
well, we've technically evolved to do that. If you really get critical about it, like that is where evolution has led us. It's not ideal, I don't think, but every step of technology has led us to being more and more distant from one another. And I think we've reached a peak of that, which is why we have such divisiveness in the political spectrum and the ability to have civil discourse.
Well, because I'm one of the weird ones. I will say there's nothing that I will say on social media that I won't say directly to your face.
Right.
I sometimes have a tendency to just kind of. I have no speed bump between my head and my mouth, so.
Right.
I've gotten better.
You said it off the rip, though. You're a weird one. You're different. I mean, look at me. I use an avatar. I use a pseudonym. I don't reveal my personal information, not because I plan on saying things that I don't want to say in public, but because I say things that if they're tied to my public persona, it could cost me because of my political ideology. And I'm
Well,
not even that extreme.
I'm afraid that if anybody, it would be unfair. If the good Lord blesses you with a face like mine, you got to share it with the world. So I go ahead and I bite the bullet.
I'm twice as beautiful as you, so I don't
Prove
think
it.
that's
Prove it. I bet you're a redhead freckled boy.
Close. My beard's bigger than yours, though.
Hey, man, this has taken me about 2.5 years of working to get this going. So, yeah, unfortunately, my people don't do a very good job of growing beards. So, we're working on it, though. We're working on it. So, but I think the biggest heist. I mean, if we're going to be honest here, if we're talking about blackwashing and whitewashing characters, the biggest heist in history, in world history, has got to be Jesus, right?
I mean, obviously, some people think he's African American, some people think he's Caucasian, and some people realize that he would have had to have been Middle Eastern.
He would have had to have been something in the middle. I mean, but I guarantee you this much: he didn't have blue hair, didn't have blonde hair, and he didn't have blue eyes. I can guarantee you that. And then I saw some numbnut on TV, not on TV, on social media, who was saying that Jesus wasn't a real person. And I'm thinking the Bible just made up, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's assuming that historically, there are far too many accounts of Jesus on a secular level outside of the Bible. So, I mean, we know that Jesus existed. Whether or not you believe that he is who he said he was, I mean, that's different time, different place. That conversation doesn't need to be had right now. But we can all agree, or should be able to agree, that he didn't have blonde hair and he didn't have blue eyes, because that would have been an anomaly for that period of time.
He would have had to have been an albino.
And Jesus, and just being real, Joseph wouldn't have been able to pull off being his dad. I guarantee you that much.
No, Joseph would have been looking for that cracker. I mean, it was hard enough to convince him to. Now the argument could be made he was made in God's image, and but that's a joke too far, so I'm not even going to go there. I did want to point something out to everybody who might stumble across this. I don't think anybody in the chat has a hard time understanding this, but anybody that watches a playback of this, you should understand that a very devout Christian and a very convinced atheist just had a polite conversation about the origin of Jesus Christ. So people should really be able to do this on things that involve pieces of paper with words on them and laws going into action. This whole political divide that we have, I think you wanted to steer the overall show into a direction of a conversation on how do we get people to stop seeing that a redhead is being replaced for an African American, start seeing that, oh, well, a character is being replaced for a character, and if both of those characters are American, then that's fine.
And that's exactly where I'm at. What I've come to realize, church, is that the current issue that we face in America, I feel like it's a sleight of hand, right? They are realized that they can get us to be outraged over something just by telling us that we should be outraged over it, right? We might not really be outraged over it, but because we're told that if we look a certain way and we have a certain ethnicity, then we should be outraged. If you're not, you're a betrayal to your people, right?
Right.
And that is such a sad place to be. I mean, I feel like, and I've talked about this before, but I feel like we've elevated the idea of groupthink above the idea of the individual. And that's what's important. Individuals are important, but it's the individuals that make up this great nation that we call America. And at the end of the day, we're all Americans, and we should all root for each other. And yeah, there's extremes, and there's people who, tote um, uh, Confederate flags around the back of their truck. And you know what? God bless that guy. He has a right to do that. Thank God I live in a country where he can do that. There's people who wear Black Panther T-shirts around and decide to lock up their hair and pray to Black Jesus. I mean, you know what? Guess what? God bless that guy too. He has a right to exist, right?
Real talk. Real talk. When I was in college, I wanted to join the Omegas.
You wanted to be a Q? You wanted to be a Q too?
I did. I wanted to be an Omega when I was at college.
That's fantastic. Why didn't you? What stopped you?
They wouldn't let me in. I wasn't Sandy Mage 42 enough.
Oh man, you could have. I wish I would have known you back then, man. I wasn't a Q, but I could have. I knew the.
You think you could have talked me in? You think you could have got him to bend that rule a little bit?
I could have vouched for you for sure. I could have got you. Yeah. I tell you what.
1/16 on my mama's side.
Hey, you probably would have looked good in purple and gold, though, man.
Oh man.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you know what? At the end of the day, that's when we will be at our strongest. That's where we will see incredible success as a country.
Well, let me bring this to your attention then. I mean, on that whole grain, because I know you and I agree on that 100%. I mean, we both agree that this divisiveness that we have is not doing anybody any good. The fact that we can't have a civil conversation between an extreme leftist and extreme righty, and those are the ones that are actually yelling.
Right.
I can't understand how we're ever going to have a civil conversation between the people in the middle if the ones on the extreme ends are always the ones like shouting back and forth to one another. But at the same time, like, have you seen this crap with this this African American music festival that is literally charging people of color and non-people of color different prices for entry?
I was actually going to bring that up. So a couple of the rappers in this music festival in Detroit have actually pulled out on after realizing that they were charging white people more. They were black artists, but they were charging white people more to go to this music festival, and they were charging. Which I'm not sure how. I got to read more into it.
I can give you the numbers if you want to know.
Yeah, give me the numbers.
There were a limited amount. I think it was like 100 or 50, something like that. There was a limited amount of free POC tickets.
Okay.
Early bird POC tickets were $10.
First time
early bird
early for anything, but go ahead.
Yeah, early bird non POC tickets were $20. Regular POC tickets were $20. Then you could make a donation of $20 if you were a non-person of color to this event, but not get a ticket, or you could pay $40 for a ticket.
But the interesting part about it is there's going to be a lot of people that show up to that, and there's going to be people who, for their white guilt or whatever you might call it, are going to pay more for their seat, just so that they can ease whatever guilt that they are told that they're supposed to have. And that's such a sad, sad place to be. But you know what's interesting to me, Q, I'm calling you Q. Sorry, Jerry. What's interesting to me is that on a weekend, let's think about this as a nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a nation, we have a weekend where a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, is arrested for the second, third time
for sex trafficking,
and accused of sex trafficking on his own private island,
Right.
where he has what has been confirmed as a temple, where he is involving children in. Uh,
You can say sex cult Q. This is pay-per-view, remember?
yeah. I mean, thank you for reminding me. In the sex cult, right? And instead of talking about these things, and now he's implicated. He's implicated a lot of very powerful people, both celebrities and political figures. He has implicated these people, but instead of talking about that, we're talking about Ariel. We're talking about how a black princess is come to be over a white made up mermaid.
Well,
Do you see that?
we're talking about it personally. The rest of the world has moved on to the Gold Cup and the UFC match last night with John Jones. And
I didn't even see it. I didn't even see it.
I
So
believe Jones lost. I didn't watch it either. I was doing a show. Saints and Sinners and Wildin' Out. That's what's trending right now.
yeah.
Mexico
So
versus USA. The goal. Yeah, but Epstein, the sex trafficking guy. Nobody really gives a crap about any of that. We're just going to move on to more entertainment or more outrage.
and beware, people. Beware for those of you guys that listen. My goal is to always, man. My goal with this show was to. It started off especially to warn. My goal was to burn down the Democratic plantation. This plantation that has been established by which people are told that because they are black that they have to look a certain way, walk a certain way, act a certain way. But then if you act that way and you behave that way, they will put you in jail with a quickness, right?
Oh, I'm seeing in the chat Jones won. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so Jones won, and so my goal was to put an end to this identity politics era, because I see that these actions and these things are destroying the black family. But then my vision evolved past that. It evolved past that because I realized, man, at the end of the day, we're all Americans, right? And just
Yeah.
because you might be an atheist and I might consider myself to be a Christian, doesn't mean that I can't love you. It doesn't mean that I can't fight for your rights to not believe in something. You have the right to
Right.
do that.
Yeah,
right
back at you. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be able. We came over here to establish a nation of the ability to escape taxation without representation.
Sure.
I mean, we did that to establish religious freedom so that we didn't have to be either Catholic or Protestant. We could pick what we wanted to do, who we wanted to do it with, and so on and so forth. Now, we had some problems with some witches and some people buying other people. And, for a little while, we had that little interlocking feud. But, after that, we kicked ass in 2 world wars and we together as a country.
Sure.
I think that since we've evolved to a level of comfort outside of that, I don't mean to drag this all the way back to comic books again, but that's how I do things. I finished I read the entire 193 issue series of The Walking Dead
Okay.
for this weekend. I read it in 2.5 days.
Oh,
And one overarching story is that eventually on the group that you start out with, the remaining members of that and survivors of that, they go on to bring about civilization again. And in doing that, people start to forget the horrors that they faced during the time of the zombie outbreak. Spoiler alert for anybody who didn't know. But people live at the end of The Walking Dead. That's all you're getting out of me. But the
right.
thing is the overarching story is about a great leader bringing a group of people together to accomplish something that should be impossible.
Sure.
And that's the story of America.
Right.
You know, George Washington brought a group of people together who didn't get along in the first place,
Sure.
and he was like, "Look, I'm going to let you fight for your ability to not get along and get shot for it. How about that?"
Sure. Sure.
And that's what we've maintained in this country. And the fact that we get caught up on these petty little left-right debates, the fact that we get caught up on these petty little black-white debates, is embarrassing. It is
I'm
embarrassing
going
for
to
our
say, and
culture.
I said earlier, but I'm not sure exactly what all was heard and what all was not heard. But for those people that are still here in the chat, let me say something, and let me make it very clear. If you are in a place where you honestly believe that we are fighting a war, black and white, or that white and black matter, it does not matter in the least. It does not matter at all.
This
The war we are fighting today is
is
liberty and socialism. Those
it,
are the two groups. You are either on one side and on the other. But let me say this very clear. They are looking earnestly to bring back slavery. They must bring back slavery. Do you realize how much more economic progress that the ruling class can make if slavery comes back? But they
well, that
understand that we can't bring back slavery as we knew it. We have to bring back slavery in a different form, and that's what socialism gives us.
well,
It gives us a working class. You hear all the Democratic people, oh, working class families, want to give working class families. Understand, this is the reason why it was, and I love my parents. I have great parents, and I love them dearly. But the reason why I didn't call my parents when I was in college and ask them for money and ask them for this and ask them for that was because I understood that when I took money from my dad or I took money from my parents, I put myself in a position where they had the right to ask me where I was going and where I was going to be and how long I was going to be there. And when I made that declaration of independence, as you might say, from my parents, I realized that I could no longer take their money.
right.
And what I realized is that as an American citizen, if you continue to take money from political parties, you are beholden to them. And when they give you free college and they give you free education, and they give you these handouts, but the most brilliant piece of it is people never question the motive behind what you are doing as long as you tell them that they are entitled to it. When people feel entitled to something, they no longer ask you, well, why are you doing this? Sounds too good to be true. But once they feel that, oh, well, you're giving because I deserve it. Well, absolutely. If they feel that they're deserving of something, they're not going to stop and ask, well, what's in it for you? Why are you doing it? This is all a con. It's all a game. And until we realize that instead of fighting over this bull crap, instead of fighting over the scraps, we need to band together as people, regardless of right, regardless of left, regardless of any of it. We need to band together as people. And we need to realize that we all want the same things. We really do. We all want our families to be healthy, we want our families to be prosperous, and we want to be able to live freely. That's what we all want. But it's interesting to me that we talked about, I had a discussion, I don't know where you fall, we've talked about comics, Church, but I think that you lean more conservative in your thinking, but
I do.
I'm a small L libertarian, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so
I'd put myself in that same category, really.
I just want less government. I want the government to get out of our way, right?
I think I lean more conservative in my values, but I think I lean more towards the idea of just let us figure it out for ourselves, and
Correct.
don't tell me how to live my goddamn life. I'm going to
Correct.
start dumping tea in the harbor if you get too much closer.
But the interesting part is, so we got into a discussion about the necessity of government with Tim Miller. You've watched the show, you know who Tim is. But we got into to the discussion. He actually agreed more. It was funny. He actually agreed with my brother, who classifies himself as being more of a social. He seems to democratic socialism seems to intrigue him a little bit. I don't want to put labels on him, but he seems to be intrigued by democratic socialism. until I told him, I said, if we give everybody health care, don't you think the government then has a responsibility to inquire what you are eating?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're eating too much bacon, don't they have the right or responsibility?
Then once they've established that, or even before they even get that far, how many alcoholic beverages do you ingest per day or a week?
How many cigarettes do you?
How many cigarettes do you smoke in a week?
How much weed do you smoke? Yeah,
Right,
all of it.
right.
They have
Let's
the
go
right
through blood
to.
test. Go ahead and let me get a hair follicle, son.
They have the right at that point to get all up in your business.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting part to me is that in the discussion that I had with my brother, he said, "Well, man is inherently evil," and I just don't believe that.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
I don't believe that. I believe that some men are, but I think we must judge men as individuals because that is what we are as individuals. So I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, and this conversation has taken a little bit different turn, but that's kind of what live shows do at times.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you classify or consider yourself to be somewhat of an atheist,
I
do. At that point, there's no greater power, essentially, because religion in a big way has been used as a means by which to keep people in check, right? Well, if you don't do this big bad God's gonna thump you in the head.
The Chris Rock skit about why pork was a sin for the Jewish people, because we didn't have refrigeration and preservative measures for meat, and pork was infested with parasites. So people realized that if you just said God said don't eat it, they won't eat it.
Right.
That's a meme, that's a joke, but it probably has a sense of truth to it, because at the same time, can I say for sure as an atheist that God doesn't exist? Absolutely not. I would never claim to. I would never try and convince anyone of that whatsoever.
Sure.
My personal livelihood, my personal views on things, the things that I have seen, I think the Bible is a handy guidebook. I think the religion of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, all of that are supposedly guidelines to follow to keep close to that culture. But that's just my personal beliefs. It's not my job to convince you that God is or isn't real. It's your job to come up with that for yourself. And why would I respect a man that couldn't do that?
Sure.
One way or the other.
Sure.
So, we get down to the nitty gritty, and you really get to the base of the point, is that people like us have coexisted since the dawning of this country. And the fact that we can't now because of something as petty as that, like, what does what I do on Sunday versus what you do on Sunday, or what books I keep in my house versus what books you keep in your house, or what I think of a certain book that we both own, because I bet we do.
Right. Right.
What does that have to do with anything, right?
Sure.
Why is that important? What's important is if Russians invaded tomorrow and they were trying to kick in your door and I was next door with an AK, would I help you fight them off or not? That's what's important.
Right. Right.
If your house was burning down, would I make sure that your family got out before I did anything, or would I call the fire department or call for a pizza? That's what's important. But
absolutely. I was reading a book the other day, and it wasn't the main premise of the book, but I was amazed to realize that there has been Muslims in the United States since before the United States was the United States, right?
Probably.
And for fact. But I also was interested to realize that at one time we were paying a 10% tax to Islamic countries, right? Islamic nations, to not attack our merchant ships coming from the U.S. because they were attacking our ships left and right, right? So we had to essentially negotiate with terrorists. So we've been dealing with this issue of terrorism, this issue of religious fight, our religious battles since well, I mean since the beginning of this country, and why now it is mainstream, and why now it is fueling left and the right is interesting to me. I mean, because now it's useful, right? You can motivate people
Right.
either with religion, or you can motivate people against religion.
Where was the war on terror when the terrorist was Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma City?
That's an interesting part, but it's hard. I mean, how do you what religion was he following, right? I mean, unifying.
Well, terrorism isn't a religion, though. That's the thing. Like that's where I don't understand where the disconnect comes from.
But
like,
unifying people against a religion is one of the oldest tricks in the book. I mean,
absolutely. Christianity going against the Muslim people for what was
the
it?
one
The
against the church,
Crusades?
right? Right.
You know, going up in the crusade to spread Christianity. Like, what do they do now? They send people to elderly people in other countries, but before they sent young men with swords and armor. Uh, different tactics, same pretty much message that they're bringing.
I'm gonna have to. This is gonna be our first disagreement on here because that wasn't Christians, that was Catholics. So
it was a sect of Christianity.
It was a for sake of argument, because you and I are getting along pretty good. We will table that argument for another time. But I could make a strong argument that Christianity and Catholicism should definitely be in different categories.
That was because of the kids, right?
Huh?
That was because of the kids, right? You don't want to be associated with those guys anymore because of that, right? I see what you're doing here, Kim. I wasn't holding that for you, man.
It's not at all. I don't want to offend anybody again, but Catholicism and Christianity. Or when I say Christianity, for example, when I say Christianity, for example, I mean most people typically think this it's a broad brush. I mean it really is a broad brush.
It is. There's how many sects of Christianity? I mean, there's probably 4 different sects of Christianity in a 3-block area of my hometown.
Sure. Well, you're in the South, so yeah.
we got more churches than we got McDonald's down here, folks.
Yeah, and I'm in the Midwest, so there's more bars than there are churches.
Oh so, man, I envy you. I can only get drunk in like 2 places down here. Everywhere else, they have you on a drink limit, whatever that
is. Yeah. So, but no, it's an interesting topic, and I definitely like to engage with you because one of the things that Tim brought up was that people needed government in a lot of ways because man is inherently evil, and man has evil tendencies, which I believe that absolute power corrupts, and I believe that power does corrupt. But I believe in the inherent goodness of man. Now, do I believe that man is capable of some vile things? Clearly.
Absolutely.
Of course.
I wanted to actually interject there and say that I disagree with your brother inherently. I don't think that all people are evil or even have the capacity for evil. Mm-hmm. I think that there are some people that do. I think there are some people, but I'm very much akin to the nurture aspect of the nature versus nurture argument. Mm-hmm. I think that the conditions in which you are given to come up under, I think that has more to do with whether you come out as quote unquote good or quote unquote bad. And I think that whether you're quote unquote good or quote unquote bad means different things wherever you're at.
Sure.
I don't think that you could ever make a broad assumption that all people are evil. Now, are all people self-serving? That's a different question.
Sure.
And would some people call being self-serving evil? That's a pretty much guaranteed yes. But that doesn't make it the case. I think that all people will do evil things to survive. And I think that all people should be prepared to do evil things to survive once they have children.
Sure.
But as a father,
So you believe in situational ethics then?
Absolutely, 100%. Do I second guess killing a mosquito or a fly because God said thou shalt not kill, even though I'm an atheist? Absolutely. Do I second guess putting a bullet in somebody that's trying to hurt my family? Absolutely not.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's understandable, and I think that's why God gave us a conscience. I mean, that's why we have a conscience. We have the ability. We also have an ability to determine right from wrong. And I have to answer this. I don't answer all conversations in the chat, but someone said, Bazak said, if man is inherently good, Christ's sacrifices become unnecessary. My sacrifices, as far as I'm concerned, were not so much because of man having the ability to be good or have the ability to be bad. I have a grandfather who was not a Christian in any way, but probably one of the most moral men I've ever known. Right. He had morals. He governed himself by morals, and someone could even make the argument that those morals are Christian in nature, right? I mean, where did the whole idea of not killing come into place? I mean, we could point. I don't know of any other document besides the Ten Commandments, right? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not envy, those types of things. And those
we don't know what kind of psychosis that burning bush was putting off.
we don't.
I mean, that could have been a burning peyote cactus. I mean,
but
really?
we still govern ourselves by those ideals, right?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, our
so
laws are shaped after them almost
absolutely. But no one would argue that those are bad laws. I mean, anyone, whether you were atheist or whether you were Christian, I think we would all agree that killing people is not good, right?
Take a tour of a federal penitentiary and get back to me on that one. I think you get some people that disagree with
you. No, because most of them, when I go there, they
right. There's a bunch of innocent people in jail, man. But no, you're absolutely right. Like the Ten Commandments, a lot of people look at most of those and say, these are probably good ethics to stick by. These are probably good rules to pass down generation to generation. Yeah.
And those Judeo-Christian beliefs have been passed down, and those are I think we all can govern ourselves by those. Again, where I feel I am a Christian, but at the same time, I also realize that mostly what we're talking about is government. We are talking a lot in this show, and I want to get away from talking about it all the time because I think it can become a little bit daunting. I remember telling my wife, "Oh God, I can't wait till this election is over in 2016, so we don't have to talk about politics." Oh my God! I mean, I'd almost rather go back to the election time. I feel
the memes were funnier.
The memes were so much funnier. But the interesting part about it all is that when it really comes down to it, I don't feel like the government has the right and or duty to legislate morality. That the government should not ever step in until I, as a person, violate the rights of another person. Whatever I choose to do in my home to myself, by myself, is tasked with a friendly ghost.
Oh man,
to
that voice is great. You just had a little bit of a warp there. You sounded like a subdimensional gremlin.
but that's Casper the Friendly Ghost to the government. Now, while I say that, I think it's interesting that, again, back to this whole Epstein thing, which I'm going to be watching this really closely, because the understanding is that he has given them, in order to stay out of jail, has given them a lot of names of hundreds of people that have come to his island that have participated in different rituals,
There,
different things.
there's speculation that Donald Trump's on that list.
And I know that has come out. I know that has come out to a lot of people have brought that up, and we're going to hear a lot about that, guys. But the truth is, and I'll post the link. In 2016, Donald Trump actually kicked him out of his, not in 2016. The story came out in 2016. This before 2016. Donald Trump kicked Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club because he was hitting on an underage person there. Donald
definitely
Trump
post that up, because I think there's going to be a lot of even if it never, because the thing is, like, nobody should believe anything.
Right.
But we're going to see a lot of gaslighting on the president of the United States to try.
Oh, they're trying so hard. I mean, they're saying friend of Donald Trump. Let's be honest, guys. I mean, how many people fall? I mean, you want to talk about a minority. How many people fall into that billionaire category? I mean, we're talking about,
1%.
Well, less than 1% fall in the billionaire category, right? So, of course they all know each other, right? But the issue that we run into is that they are trying their best, because Bill Clinton has been to the island 26 times. That's confirmed. 26 times Bill Clinton has been there. So, of course, they're looking for a way to tie Donald Trump to it. Donald Trump, which if he was there, then by all means.
How many times was Hillary there?
I don't know, but if Donald Trump was there, then he needs to hang with the rest of them. If he did, anyone who would hurt a child, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'll pull the trigger. Anybody that would hurt a child, period. It doesn't have to be my child. You hurt a child, especially, and if I hear about it, I will arrange the meeting and let God sort it out.
Got some estimates in the chat, several hundred, maybe 1,000 for Hillary Clinton.
Well, I can't confirm or deny that. But what I will say is that Donald Trump testified against him even before he became president. Was very with the U.S. attorneys, was very, very in this article that I read, was very influential in helping to get a conviction, or not. I don't even know if it didn't go to court. He plead out on the deal, but was very helpful with testimonies, because Donald Trump found out that he was trying to pick up on some young ladies that worked in his Mar-a-Lago club.
Right.
And so I will post that up, but that was, again, pre-election. So it's amazing to me, especially as black people. Every rapper in the world wanted to be Donald Trump. I could think of maybe 6 different rap songs that came out talking about being black Donald Trump.
Trump money.
Donald Trump money. Everybody wanted to be Donald Trump until he got elected.
couple of your fired references.
But of course, again, we go back to this false outrage, this fake outrage. So, but again, we started off the conversation. We kind of made a full circle talking about Ariel, about this is not new. This idea of characters changing in gender, or none of that's new. Now, I did hear that there were a lot of people that really hated the idea of Idris Elba playing James Bond.
I
Um,
saw a lot of that as well, and when you looked into it, it wasn't as much people saying they hated the idea of Idris Elba playing James Bond. They hated the idea of neutering the character and making him PC.
right, right. That was my issue with it. The idea of James Bond being played by Idris Elba, I love it. I
Yeah, me
think,
too. I think
I
it would be
think,
pretty amazing. I think that if they make him, not an alcoholic, womanizing badass, I think there's going to be some problems.
at that point, then I'm not gonna,
Yeah, we
I'm
need a
not.
008 at that point. This is not James Bond. This is this is John Bones or whoever the fuck. But
Yeah,
008,
yeah. No, no. John Bones Jones is definitely definitely be some drugs involved if
right?
he's going to be in it. So,
That would be fantastic. He couldn't pass the
uh,
drug test to film. That'd be great.
yeah. But I tell you what, man, we are coming to the end. We're going to be shutting it down. I
Oh
feel
yeah,
bad.
you put me over budget. I gotta start at like 8 or at 10:20 or something now.
Oh man, I'm so sorry, guys.
Oh, good.
Be sure to go ahead and tell where you're from, plug your channel, and let everybody know where they can find you and what they'll hear when they get there.
Well, everybody that stuck around, we appreciate it. Definitely, I love these guys. I really appreciate them having me on first and foremost. Secondly, I run a small comic show over on the Gospel of Comics, youtube.com/c/Gospel of Comics. We do 2 shows a week where we talk about different storylines, different topics in comic books. We've had Q on before to discuss race shifting in comics with like Captain America and whatnot. So jump on over there in about 15, 20 minutes, and we'll be starting up. Me and Atomic Denny are gonna be talking about Umbrella Academy tonight. You still there?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Fantastic, man. Well, hey, great having you on. Appreciate it. And actually, I will say that Mr. Church was also the one that helped me to design the Sandy Beige 42 get out of jail cards.
There
So,
you go.
so appreciate that. Been a great friend of the show. And we will look forward to having you on in the future again. I would love to have you come on and discuss the whole idea of self-governance. I think that would be a fun show to do.
Oh
But
yeah.
that would be fantastic. But hey, guys, once again, thank you guys for sticking around. You guys are the best. I really appreciate it. Sorry for all of the boomer issues in the beginning. We really are working on getting them better, but we will get them figured out. But thank you guys for sticking around. We really do appreciate it. We once again remind you to stay in the fight, and we look forward to seeing you guys next Sunday. There'll be some more content being posted up. If you are not currently subscribed to the show, please make sure you subscribe. Push a little bell button on the bottom. You will get reminders for when the shows are coming and when there's new content put up. And if you check it again, guys, be sure that you are subscribed. I know that there's several people that I've subscribed to that unfortunately I have not. I've been unsubscribed for some reason to their channel, and I'm no longer getting information when they drop things. But hey, so thank you for your support. We appreciate you guys being on. Soder, thank you for your help. Thank you, Church, and we will
Always.
see you guys next week. Remember to stay in the fight. Take care. Until next Sunday. Bye now.
Have a good one.